Okay.
Here we are.
Hi, everybody. We're just waiting for everyone to get on board and then we'll start. Okay, they're all coming through now. Okay, I think we've got enough to get started. So good afternoon and thank you to all of you for making time to join our webinar. Obviously, it's pretty trying times and have been over the last few months. And obviously, since the government announced roadmap going forward on the 7th of September, we've sort of been a little bit disappointed with what initially came out, and we're working very hard to move ahead. So I will firstly introduce you to our participants today. Obviously, most of you are probably very familiar with everyone by now, but we've got our CEO, Wes Lambert, chatting today, as well as Tom Green, who is Head of Policy and Government, and myself, Anthea, and I'm the Membership Manager for Victoria. So we'll obviously kick off with Wes. I'll just show you today, if you want to ask questions, you can put them down in the Q&A section, or if you just want to chat and introduce yourselves and say hello, feel free to do so. We may not answer questions as they're coming through, so we want to be able to run it according to an agenda today. So if we don't answer your question immediately, rest assured we'll be answering it at some stage during the webinar. So I will hand you over to Wes and he'll start with his roadmap to recovery.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. Certainly the announcement from the Andrews government this morning was quite a surprise that Regional Victoria from 11:59 tomorrow night will be allowed outdoor and indoor dining. For those of you who have not seen the release from the Andrews government or read any of the postings about it, the actual rules have not been released in writing. We expect those this afternoon. We expect by the Premier's comments that between 10 and 20 people will be allowed for indoor dining, and the specific details about the numbers based upon your venue size should be in the written announcement later today, but it was noted that it would be 1 point per 4 square meters indoor. Outdoor, the caps are 50, with groups no larger than 10 at a 1 per 2. Additionally, there was no mention made of licensing or of activating outdoors. We do expect that more details will come out from the government between now and tomorrow night. We do understand that it's last minute, and we do expect that all future announcements from the Andrews government will come last minute. So from the point of view of 28 September, 26 October, 23 November, and beyond, we do expect that those announcements will be made with very little notice. So it is very important that we know that that's how the Andrews government makes announcements. We cannot stop him from announcing things that way. Certainly doesn't make a lot of sense. However, it is some positive green shoots because he has skipped a step for the Regional Victoria. So there will be outdoor and indoor dining. He noted that there would be 70 people allowed in your venue at one time, in some cases for Regional Victoria. So that's the newest announcement. That was today. Certainly, we will have more information about that as it becomes available. We continue to be unhappy with the roadmap. We as an industry have gotten behind the movement in Victoria to change the roadmap, specifically looking for indoor dining to come online on the 26th of October versus just outdoor. Thank you, Anthea. So please know that we are, no, we're still on the last slide, Anthea.
Oh,
It's all right. No, two more back. So we are working every day speaking to the departments and health to take a more common sense approach and be more in line with the New South Wales suppression and tracking and tracing. And we're here to tell you that there has been some movement behind closed doors to that thinking. So we saw that today with the skipping of a step in regional Victoria. And we certainly are hearing from health as well as the departments behind closed doors that they are open to a common sense approach. We will certainly consider to push in the public eye to ensure that the politicians are speaking the same as the departments in health, but it is going on in the background to get that step altered. Both the ability to have indoor dining, similar to the regions, as well as the number of active cases, or daily cases, both in the step 3 as well as the last step. So we are absolutely working for you behind the scenes to change the roadmap. At the same time, we are working with the departments to ensure that the outdoor rules are as generous as possible. Today, the announcement of 50 outdoor with groups of 10 is different than what the Premier announced the day of the roadmap. That was thanks to a lot of lobbying behind closed doors, and we are continuing to do so for the definition of outdoor for Greater Melbourne, which is much better in draft than what the Premier said when he announced the roadmap. I can't reveal that as of yet because it remains in draft, but I can tell you that it is very much in line with what has come out in regional Victoria. And certainly is not just 10 people outside. So we need you to be patient. We are pushing very, very hard to ensure that the outdoor definition is very generous. We continue to push for indoor dining to be allowed on the 26th of October. We will continue to push for that. We do have to accept that outdoor dining will be a part of the Melbourne dining culture and scene for the spring and summer. The Premier, the departments, the councils, they are not pushing back from the government in figuring out how to activate outdoor spaces. There is not a council in Victoria that is saying, no, Premier, we don't want the grants to activate outdoor space. No, Premier, we don't want to close down laneways and sidewalks and parks for businesses to begin to recover. So there is a lot of pressure because the councils want it and many of the residents want it. And there are a lot of businesses that already traded outside, your coffee shops, your cafes, that will then go back to their traditional way of trading. So we are working with the departments to get the best outcome for definition of outdoor, to get the indoor added to October 26th, as well as working with the Mayor of Greater Melbourne on getting laneways, sidewalks, and parks closed with as little cost and as red tape as possible. So many of you are saying, oh, it's not enough money for plastic tables and chairs and heaters and blankets and barriers, and we understand that. So we are pushing the government to ensure that they understand the costs of outdoor. Realize that they only made the first announcement of the roadmap last Sunday, and they made the first announcement of stimulus on Sunday and the second on Monday. So it's going to be ad hoc with the government. They are coming out with stimulus based upon industry associations like Restaurant and Catering's ask of them. I don't know if any of you watched the announcement on Sunday or yesterday, but hospitality was the only industry that was specifically targeted and mentioned for specific stimulus. That is because we are lobbying the government behind closed doors for more money for our industry. So it's very important that all of you absolutely apply for that money and continue to apply for that money and get the maximum amount that you can. And we're going to continue to ask for more and more and more and more. And hopefully we will continue to stay top of mind and top of mouth of the politicians and the departments like we have been so far. So that is what we are doing. When a minister gets up and says targeted support for hospitality, it's not because they're just imagining that that's the right thing to do. We are lobbying them very heavily. I spoke to the minister just a day before he made the announcement. They absolutely appreciate our submission, and they are aware of our Eat Out to Help Out campaign for a consumer-focused approach to get people to begin to come back to venues as fast as possible. And we're still teasing out a way to do that. And they are still talking about further stimulus for the hospitality industry. And finally, we are working very closely with councils and with liquor and gaming licensing to ensure that you have as little red tape as possible when it comes to getting outdoor dining with your liquor license as well as with the councils, and that it becomes a permanent ability for your business. Meaning that if the councils decide that for certain parts of the year that they're going to close off certain laneways and certain sidewalks in certain parks, that this doesn't just become a temporary solution, it becomes a permanent fixture of dining if you want to do it. So we are working very, very hard for the industry. It is taking up a majority of our time at Restaurant and Catering right now, working on Victoria and getting your venues open and trading back to normal as fast as possible. We're very passionate about it. We had a media release that went out today. You may have seen it in emails, and you certainly will see it in the news. The hospitality industry is one voice. We are all saying the same thing. Yes, we are happy that Regional Victoria has opened. Yes, we are happy with the stimulus, but it's not enough. And we need indoor dining from the 26th of October at reasonable numbers. And we need the government to understand that outdoor is not the only solution. Okay, we are one voice. We are out there together. It's time for hospitality to be unlocked. So I'm going to hand over to back to Anthea to continue with the presentation.
Okay, well, next we'll have Tom speaking about sort of action plans and how best for you. I'll just have a look quickly. I know we've got a few questions. Do we go through a few of these questions now, or?
I think what I might do is kind of say my piece and then I'll kind of jump into a few of the questions.
All right.
I think we'll kind of come off on a lot of these as well.
All right,
so
let me go back to
the slide.
Yeah, let's go back to the slides. Hang on a minute. Sorry, everyone. Okay.
No, not at all. Andy, you're doing a great job. This is the first time you've done something
I'm a
like
bit
this.
of a rookie with this, so you'll have to bear with me.
I know how stressful it is, so it's not an easy thing to do. So, look, for those of you on today, I want to say hello, and I also want to say that, you know, we at Restaurant and Catering, you know, myself as kind of managing the policy and government work, and also Victor Song, who's couldn't be here on the Zoom due to a personal issue, but is managing our IR calls. I'm sure a lot of you have kind of phoned into Victor for advice and information. You know, we really do feel like we are at the forefront of this with you, even though, you know, there's a very hard state border that might exist between us being in New South Wales. We really do feel a fraction of what you are going through. And I think by kind of talking to you and kind of experiencing it every single day, it is something that we are feeling, and it is not just taking up a lot of our professional time. It's for me anyway, it's taking up a lot of my headspace even outside of work hours. And I really want you to know that it's something that it's kind of very much keeping us up at night, and we are trying to deploy every resource that we have to assist the industry in every way that we know how. You know, as we've said, it's been an extraordinary kind of week and a half. We had the roadmap released on Sunday to, you know, what I would describe as white hot anger from a lot of the affected industries. I think that anger was broadly justified, as they kind of thought that the end was coming, and they thought the light was at the end of the tunnel, but in fact that tunnel may have been a bit longer or a lot longer than they expected. And, you know, after that roadmap was released, you know, we had our heads down and we were kind of listening to as many people as we could about, okay, well, if this is what we've got to work with from the government, how do we go about making the best of this situation? And I think Wes ran through really, really clearly what we identified quite early on as being the big problems with that document, and what were the things that, you know, if this was going to be the document that was going to guide us out of this, what are the things that our sector needs? What is the support, whether financial and monetary or otherwise, that our sector needs to get through this? And I think, and I say this with quite genuineness, the Victorian government is actually very genuinely invested since the release of the roadmap in delivering what our sector needs to recover. That's the first point. I think the words that Wes has used in the past to describe the consultation in relation to the roadmap was that we were consulted, but we were not listened to. And I think you saw that reflected in the end document that was put out. But, you know, and obviously we'll be continuing to push for a speedier transition through those steps of the reopening, for more sensible definitions around things like outdoor dining, indoor dining, cap amounts, density limits, all of those things. They might seem like kind of bureaucratic nonsense, but the reality is, if you get outdoor dining, for example, moved from a 1.4 one person per 4 square metre rule to a 1 person per 2 square metre rule, which is what we've seen reflected today, that is essentially a doubling of the capacity of venues if they do have access to outdoor dining. So these things might seem small, but they are actually big changes. The language that I always use is that government never moves in hours at a time. It works like a clock. They tick second by second, and that's the way that you've got to move government on issues like this. But if we've got this roadmap, and we've seen some announcements in the last 3 days in relation to a fairly significant business support package, and a particular focus on our industry yesterday in relation to outdoor dining, and now today an announcement in relation to regional Victoria that further emphasises that point. One of the big takeaways as a point of advice to our members and to the industry more broadly in Victoria is that outdoor dining is going to be a large part. It's not going to be the only part, but it's going to be a large part of the way that our sector is going to operate in Victoria for the short to medium term. And that is going to, you know, if we're going to be really honest, that there are going to be some businesses that will look at that and go, yep, great. I've got great access to outdoor space. I have a brilliant council that I work with that's more than happy to tick things off for me. And I've got a thoroughfare arrangement in my business that means that outdoor dining is something that I can utilise. And I've got all the plant and equipment, tables, chairs, umbrellas, everything like that. I can make this work. I'm going to be okay. There are other people who look at this and say, I have no access to outdoor dining. I have no permit into my council for outdoor dining. And no matter how much money you give me, outdoor dining is not going to work for my business. And we understand that, we genuinely do. And that's part of our push around indoor dining. But the very harsh reality of this is that outdoor dining is going to be the focus of the recovery in Victoria at the first end. There will be indoor. We've seen that with the regional announcement, but we're always going to get more outdoor than we will indoor. So I think that's one of the first points that I really want to note is that you know, and we're going to be releasing quite, you know, we've waited for these announcements to come in before providing advice to members because we wanted to see this pipeline come out. But in relation to outdoor dining, there is going to be significant resources allocated to our sector to assist businesses who can in pivoting towards outdoor dining. And that's not just going to be, you know, here's a bit of change for you to go and buy some tables and chairs. It's going to be waiving fees in relation to outdoor dining permits. It's going to be working with councils, whether it's City of Melbourne, whether it's a more metropolitan council area, to activate precincts and activate areas that would otherwise be unused. And don't underestimate the extent to which those activations will occur. You know, I've heard discussions about closing Little Collins Street, like literally closing Little Collins Street from one end to the other to allow for tables and chairs to be set up in the middle of the road. That is not a suggestion, despite the traffic chaos that might cause. That is not an idea that's off the table. So they are genuinely thinking big around those activations, and they want to work with councils around those activations. So I think the really first point to note is looking and thinking as creatively as you can when it comes to the use of the outdoor space that you might have available. Whether that's the sidewalk, whether that's a laneway near your business, whether that's a shared space that might be reasonably accessible to your staff when it comes to serving customers. It could even be, and I'm not saying that this is a good idea, but it could even be, you know, public space across the road. I don't know what that necessarily looks like in your business, but something that we've been imploring business owners to think about is to focus on what are the areas near your business that you can access from an outdoor dining perspective, and how do you go about activating those precincts. So I think that kind of feeds back into this idea of ensuring that you are ready to open, thinking about how you go about serving customers under this new environment. You know, there are going to be some really significant changes for staff and for businesses under an outdoor dining model. I've worked extensively in businesses that are indoor dining only, that are outdoor dining predominant, and also that are a mix. And the reality is serving customers outdoor is a very, very different process and a very, very different logistical challenge than necessarily indoor. So the number one point would be thinking outdoor, see if it works for you, and try and think creatively about the spaces that you can activate, because whether it's the state government or your local council, there will be a lot of big thinking going into how do we activate more and more outdoor dining space. And this is them very much sticking to this roadmap plan, which says that outdoor is the way that they want to go, at least in the short to medium term, until we get to that October, November timeframe that will allow for some indoor. We are also pushing really, really hard for businesses that are indoor only. One of the things that we raised, even through the roadmap consultations a couple of weeks ago, was to say, look, the problem that you will have is that there are businesses out there that cannot access outdoor. Let's say you're in a shopping centre, as an example, or you're in an inward or indoor facing business. So you might have a separate business area, but outside your business is actually still indoors. There's just no opportunity for you to access that outdoor space. And we are pushing very, very hard for a sensible regime around exemptions for those types of businesses who physically cannot access outdoor, no matter how creative you are, no matter how grand and big your plans and ideas are. There is no way you're getting outside for dining, and that's something that we are currently pushing very, very hard on. Moving to point number 3, and it's an important point to note in relation to the funds that have been committed over the last couple of days. For those of you who haven't read through these announcements in detail, I forgive you for not doing that, because they are very dense. And we'll be providing some more in-depth advice tomorrow morning. We're just kind of delving through some of the detail that's come out in the last couple of days to make sure that we have a genuine understanding of the way these things are going to work. But there is an extensive amount of money on the table for businesses to access cash grants under the Business Support Fund, which is essentially an expansion of the grants program that has already been put in place. I believe it's called the Business Support Fund. There are also grants in place for outdoor dining and the activation of outdoor dining. So if you've got a turnover of less than $3 million a year, they will allow you to purchase, for you to own outdoor dining equipment like tables, chairs, umbrellas, screens, whatever. And there's $5,000 on offer for each business that might want to take up that opportunity. There is continuing waiving of certain liquor licensing arrangements. There is going to be waiving of outdoor dining permits. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that's fed into that. But the way that the government is moving at the moment is that they're focusing on these cash grants as being the speediest way to inject money into these businesses to allow them to keep employing staff and turning over. So that's the first step. Their focus is going to be those cash grants, and I think there is up to $30,000 available for individual businesses. So we're going to be sharing those links around in EDMs to our Victorian members and wider network. So I'd encourage you to have a look at those. Encourage you to familiarise yourself for the things that you might be eligible for. And if you don't know what you might be eligible for, if you want to know, if you want more information, it goes to my point at the end. This is what we are here for. For those of you and I'm going to be super blunt about this, those of you who are members of R&CA who pay your membership fees, you pay your fees because people like me, people like Victor, sit around all day and wait for your call. I guarantee you, if there's something that's in my inbox or there's something that I am doing and I get a member call that's coming through to me directly, whatever I'm working on stops and I focus on that member call. And the amount of times that we've seen members come to us from all over the country who say to me, look, I've tried doing this for a month. I'm at my wit's end. I can't do this on my own. I need help. The first question I ask them is, you should have called us first. It's what we're here for. It's what you pay your membership dues for. And that's the benefit out of being a member of the association. So I implore you, I'm probably making a rod for my own back here because I'm going to get 100 phone calls like this. But what I'm saying is we are here and we are available and we want to help. So for things like grants, understanding the way you're supposed to be putting in your outdoor dining permit, that's going to be a very, very big one for a lot of businesses. And it's a fear that I have as your councils move into something called caretaker mode, because you're obviously going through your election process. It's going to be very difficult for us to get in contact with councillors and mayors and what have you and get the wheels greased to be able to get these applications through. The state government is very aware of this, and this is what they're very worried about, is that you've only got to have, and I'm sure there'll be people on the call with these examples, idiot licensing officers at a local council level who sit on licensing applications for a week. The reality is you guys don't have a week, and our statement to the state government has been, if these things aren't getting turned around within 72 hours, then there's no hope in this outdoor dining thing even working. So I guess leaving as a final point of advice would be to differentiate between the two types of businesses who might be interacting with these outdoor dining permits. The first is those that have already got an outdoor dining permit. Let's say they've got 40 square meters for argument's sake. They can put 20 people in there. Hopefully once these new rules come into effect, whenever that is, whenever we move into this step 3. In that circumstance, all you're asking for is an expansion. Say you want to double your size because you're in a laneway and you've got a little bit to the left and right of you that you might be able to access. That's going to be a fairly simple thing. You're going to find that they get ticked off quite easily. The bits that we're worried about is for businesses that, for example, have decided that for whatever reason they don't want that outdoor dining permit, that they're more than happy to operate indoors, but now they want to pivot, they want to go outside. The problem there is that is a business that the council has not interacted with when it comes to outdoor dining. They don't understand the space. Our worry is that is where you will see delays, and that's something that we want to try and fix as quickly as possible. And the Premier's announcement yesterday did go some way to dealing with that, but our view is that there needs to be a standardised set of rules across the entire Greater Melbourne area to be able to effectively deal, and in regional areas, but across the Greater Victoria, to deal with these things effectively, because you cannot have a situation where one side of the street, being one council area, is getting their outdoor dining permits approved within 72 hours, and the other businesses on the other side of the street are waiting a week or longer to get themselves ticked off. So our advice is make sure you have a think about how you might want to activate those outdoor areas. Get your applications in now. Don't wait until you hear an announcement from the Premier to say, look, wonderful news, we're moving to step 3 in a week. Do it like right now. If that's something that you think you can do, if it's something that you can identify in your business, put in that application right now. And so we want to do it in anticipation of being able to open once the restrictions lift. That would be my final point. I realize that I've been talking for a little while. I realize...
All right, Tom, so we're going to very quickly go to the questions. Some of them are old and many of them are very similar. So first off, to all of the questions about outdoor, all of the arguments about how it's Melbourne and it's got bad weather and we don't know how the councils are going to close down the streets and bus stops in front of your business and you're on level 3 or level 2 or in a basement. All of those things are questions that we have posed to the Andrew's government with no answers, meaning they are hell-bent on outdoor dining. They will not be derailed from some level of outdoor dining. They are getting buy-in from many, many, many councils, mayors, councillors, citizens. So they are listening to all of the individual businesses' concerns about outdoor dining, but it is going to be the predominant dining mechanism for the spring and summer unless the cases get to 0 and stay there. So they're telling us this behind closed doors. They're telling us this in the public. They are not wavering from that position. They are not wavering from that position. So there is no level of reports. There is no level of medical, additional medical information. There is no level of business pressure. There is no level of media pressure that is going to make Dan Andrews come on to live television and say, oh, guys, I was wrong. We're going to not do outdoor dining. So outdoor dining is coming as the starting option, and we're going to push, similar to regional Victoria, that indoor is included. But health, the departments, and the current government of Victoria are lockstep in agreement that outdoor dining is what it's going to start with in Greater Melbourne. Million questions, million problems with it, million confusions, and million concerns. But that is what we've been presented with. And so, you know, it's, I hate it. I hate that Victoria is going to reopen outside. I would have preferred it to be indoor, but every health authority around the world, the WHO, the CDC, the Australian health authorities have determined that indoor is more infectious than outdoor. Doesn't matter if I agree with it or disagree with it. There is no health authority that is in control during a pandemic, especially health in Victoria, that thinks that indoor is safer than outdoor. And they will not be shaken in their resolve. However, they are willing to use common sense to reopen in a safe way, which is why there are going to be customers indoor in regional Victoria, which is why they're willing to review the case numbers per day in Greater Melbourne to get indoor dining, which we're going to continue to push for. But they're not going to be shaken from their resolve for indoor dining, no matter how much pressure that we as an industry put on them. Yes, a marquee roof is over an outdoor area, is in the draft definition of outdoor, but you will not be able to roll down the sides, meaning that if you turn a outdoor area into indoor by enclosing it, then it's indoor and it would no longer be considered outdoor. So roof only or up to one wall. Roof only up to one wall. Can be permanent, can be temporary. Let's see. Yes, in the draft definition from liquor and gaming, your license would be extended outdoor. It'll be a temporary license, potentially that could become permanent to allow you to trade outside. And as Tom said, there will be a specific license that the state government puts out. They're in final drafting, and that should be up on the liquor and gaming website soon, which we'll provide a link to, as well as instructions to to speak with your local council, because it depends on where you're located in Greater Melbourne and regional Victoria. For some of you who are on busy roads that have very little sidewalks, very little and no street, your option for outdoor dining either may be limited or it may actually be off-site. So it may be in a council parking lot close. We don't love it. We don't like it. We don't agree with it. That's not what we're here to say. What we're here is to give you information that we get. We are going to continue to lobby that indoor dining is part of the solution, but we're also here to help those who are going to activate their outdoor dining spaces, because we know many of you already have outdoor space or will activate. And the last question is, again, talking about getting outdoor space open. So I have 2 meetings on Friday, one with the Council of Greater Melbourne and then one with the hospitality group of the department. Yes, each council will be slightly different in what it allows to be reopened, but that would be made on a council level, meaning they'll make a determination about what laneways and what areas that can be closed down. And then you'll be able to apply to move your restaurant space into those areas that are reopened. Don't see any other questions outside of those. Catering and events. At present, catering events are not in the roadmap, mainly because of the numbers, but obviously there is a world past last step in COVID normal, and those discussions will come up much like they did in New South Wales once the case numbers are down. There obviously has to be things beyond last step in COVID normal, which is many other business types reopening. So
I might grab, there's a question that's just come through at the very end from Brad in relation to JobKeeper. I think that's a really important point. So last week we kind of gave to the Victorian government and spoke kind of publicly about what we believe was the kind of holistic plan that our sector needed to be able to reopen. The first 2 points, I think we're quite happy that the Victorian government has picked up fairly quickly, which was a much more generous grants program than had been mentioned previously. You know, $5,000 and $10,000 were kind of drops in the ocean for a lot of these businesses. And the fact that they'd been essentially tripled with the announcement from the Premier over the weekend was good news. And I think it was good to see that being taken on board. The second was in relation to outdoor dining, which we did see almost word for word picked up by the government in their announcement yesterday. The third option was our, basically a policy measure aimed at encouraging consumers to spend in restaurants, which was essentially modelled off the UK Eat Out to Help Out. I think that's the phrase that they called it in the UK model. For us, that would see $100 vouchers going to every household in Victoria that had more than 2 people or 2 people or more, and $50 for each single person household. So that's something that we are still in discussions with the Victorians about. We think that would be the kind of shot in the arm that would, it's one thing to pump, I don't want to say fake money, but to pump kind of artificial government funds as turnover through your businesses. That's great, but I think another great way to do it would be to have your customers coming back incentivized and encouraged to patronise your businesses. And I think that's one of the really big ideas that we wanted to put forward. But finally was in relation to JobKeeper. And I think it's important that's been raised because it was something that we and I did want to raise in relation to the changes that are coming up for JobKeeper. Our strong view is that JobKeeper needs to be topped up for businesses in Victoria who are suffering that turnover. To have businesses move to a lower amount per fortnight at $1,200 is not going to work from the 29th of September at the end of this month, which is when that step down for JobKeeper is going to occur. We do not believe that it's going to work. We do not believe that that is adequate support. And we believe that that actually sets Victoria further back than what it needs to be. Our view was that that should be topped up by the federal government, which is appropriate. And if the federal government didn't want to do that, then it should be the state government that should be funding that, that top up. Something to note though in this, and I always try and find a bit of a silver lining in everything. JobKeeper stepping down is going to be on the mind of the Victorian government economically. They know that at the end of this month, that there is going to be a huge loss of wages for thousands and thousands of employees across Victoria. Now that might sound like a horrible thing, but the reality is it is going to drive them to make more aggressive reopening decisions, because they know that that if the federal government is not coming to their rescue, if the federal government is not going to bail them out for their for the fact that they have slowed this roadmap down, it's going to force the Victorian government to move faster in the way that they reopen. And that's one of the really important arguments that we are putting to the Premier's office and to the Treasurer's office and to the Jobs Minister's office and everyone who will listen, that what we are coming up to at the end of September is a really important date for Victoria, and it is all linked to the step down rate in JobKeeper. But what we are finding, and this is what I wanted to raise, because this is something that, again, we've had a lot of questions on, is in relation to the way that these new JobKeeper arrangements will work. The most common question that we get is, can I, let's say I have rostered my staff from a full working week to 25 hours a week under a JobKeeper enabling direction to ensure that there is basically no cost other than the superannuation on those wages from me employing that person, because their take-home pay is $1,500 gross per fortnight, and my JobKeeper payment to them is $1,500 per fortnight. Now that it's stepped down to $1,200, can I further reduce those hours in order to be able to ensure that I'm not paying any extra to that employee? The answer is yes, you can. So that 25 hours will move to 20 hours, just for argument's sake to demonstrate the point. But you will need to issue a further or a new JobKeeper enabling direction in your business. So you'll need to make sure that those are updated by the end of the month. And that is a really important point to note, is that you can further reduce the hours of the staff that you have on offer to ensure that your wage cost is as close to zero as possible. And if you do have any questions, I'd really encourage you to call Victor, who is our IR expert and guru. That number is listed there. Again, this is a service that we offer our members that I think is not utilised as much as it should be. You know, normally these things cost a lot of money. If you want to go and call an employment lawyer to get some advice around what to do, the reality is we offer this for free. And I'm very proud of the fact that we offer it for free. And the amount of members that we have calling in saying, right, I've made a decision to get rid of this casual worker. Here are my reasons why. I've already done it, or I've already taken this decision. I just want to double check with R&CA that I've done the right thing here. And then we've kind of got to jump in and help. It's much easier to call us first and get us to look over or double check that you're on the right path on something. So I really do encourage you to make use of that phone call.
Can I interject and just reiterate that a lot of people do put questions up on a lot of Facebook groups that are out there happening at the moment. And sometimes it is frustrating when you, as Tom says, you can just call our IR line or myself or Tom. If I can't answer, I will always put you on to Tom or Victor. So please, it's easier to get the correct information from one person than get half-hearted answers from half a dozen other people out there that aren't exactly experts on the question that you're asking. So.
And Jill, to answer your question, yes, we'll be issuing a new JobKeeper letter template for members to use. What I would say then finally is a really important point is for those of you, you know, whether you're a caterer employing under the Hospitality Award, or whether you're a restaurant or cafe or other type of business employing under the Restaurant Award, there are also changes to these awards that affect workers that are not covered by JobKeeper. So those are workers in your business who are new, or workers in your business that might be visa workers. So they do work under the award, but they're not covered by JobKeeper, and they're not covered by those protections. There are flexibilities in place under the Restaurant Industry Award and the Hospitality General Award to cover those workers. They're due to expire at the end of the month. We are currently in negotiation with the unions around what a further extension will look like. for those workers. There is a general acceptance that that's something we'll need to continue, and hopefully we're going to have more to say on that soon. But just for those employees out there that have a predominantly, say, visa-based workforce or 483, 457-based workforce, you know, those changes are far more important to you than JobKeeper.
So Anthony, if it's okay that I just hit the last three questions before we move on to your amazing section. Yes, you will be required a COVID safe plan to be updated to include outdoor dining. Certainly give us a call. We can help you to get your COVID safe plan updated. You know, that's definitely what Tom is talking about, but you will need an updated one. So that is quite important. And the next question is, sorry, the dry zone of Melbourne. As I said, the Department of Liquor and Gaming is still firming up the definition of outdoor and how those permits are going to work. But understand that the state is pulling out all the stops. So they can't announce outdoor dining and then start putting all kinds of roadblocks to make it not happen. So we do expect that the state will be relaxing most rules. And it certainly will be important to understand that your council will be pushed very hard by the state government to suspend or waive all restrictions that would normally have been in place to certain business types or certain areas or dry zones. There's no actual information out about that yet, but again, the roadmap was only released last Sunday. We are all moving, you know, I like to say, what a busy week a busy year we've had this week, right? So there's always a lot of policy that's made on the fly. So it's very important to just keep checking back with the coronavirus hub of restaurant and catering. We will always have the most up-to-date information. The question about delivery. That's a very specific question. I'm pretty sure that if you are in Greater Melbourne, you are not supposed to be going to regional Victoria, employees or individuals, but that's going to be a local question, meaning you should probably call your local council or your local police. They can better answer for you if your postcode or your area is allowed to conduct business into regional Victoria. They will give you the best answer because they'll be the ones that would be finding you if you are found outside of the area. And yes, we will have a template for updating the outdoor section of the COVID safe plan.
And I think what you'll see is that there will be a new COVID safe plan or an updated COVID safe plan that will be up online on the Business Victoria website. And as we transition through these stages, they will make it quite easy for businesses that under the first reopening didn't have outdoor that now do. So you will see that kind of updated plan. And again, we'll make that available as it comes through. There is a mountain of information that is going to be coming out from the Victorian government as they transition through these stages. You know, it catches, it is going to be a lot of information for people to go through and to digest. So I really encourage everyone to check the hub, stay up to date on our social media, and make sure that that you're reading through EDMs that we do send out. As much of a pain in the backside it is sometimes to go through them, the reality is they do contain the information that you need, and we do try and compile that information as succinctly as possible. And that's unfortunately the most effective way for us to reach lots of businesses very, very quickly. So I really do make sure that you check those. Some people I've found have them in their junk mail and get a mistake of their email server or whatever it is, but make sure you're looking for those because they are really important and they do have all the information that you need. Okay,
so just the final section today is all about the two different campaigns that we're supporting or actually launched ourselves. So you may have seen us getting behind the Unlock Hospitality Now campaign that was actually not started by us, obviously started by quite a few Victorian restaurateurs, but we were very happy to support it. We have, in conjunction with one of our council members, who created a survey that we've now attached to this campaign, and we really urge everyone to take part in this survey. It will really give us some hard data that we can work with to really understand the true impacts of COVID. I mean, I know there's statistics coming out, but we think it's really important to get some more detailed information around it, and also information not just from Melbourne Metropolitan, but from regional, so we can really have a clear idea of how it's affecting everybody. So we have now made it so you don't have to put in your personal details. So please understand that it can be totally anonymous. And as long as, if you do want to be contacted, what we want to do is compile information and then come back to everybody as well and share the information in terms of how, you know, relating to every question in there and how it's affected industry overall. There are many different sectors, obviously catering and cafes, restaurants, you know, lots of different type of sectors in hospitality. So it's important to get feedback on every particular area. And finally, we launched, as Tom spoke about, and Wes, the Eat Out to Help Out campaign that we launched yesterday. This is all about getting the $100 voucher supported by government to really put some big dollars back into industry. So we would encourage you to share that on your social media and get everyone to sign the petition, and that's consumers and industry. So yeah, these are just the little things we can do at the moment just to get some positivity out there, to get you communicating with your customers as well. So I don't know if we've answered, I think we've covered all the questions today. Obviously, as we've said, feel free, I think you all know how to contact all of us. Hopefully, if you don't, then just get on our website. But most of you would have my details. I think I try and communicate pretty regularly, whether it's phone, email, etc. So thank you so much for taking part today. I hope we've been able to impart at least some information, or at least make you understand where we're at with the whole process. So thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.